Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the YouTube channel. Today, we have a very special guest, Mr. Champ T. Graham. First and foremost, I want to say thanks for, jumping on the channel. And yeah, nice to have you, man.
What is up, dude? Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here, dude. I'm happy that we get to sit down and speak a little bit more long form because for everybody watching this video, Bintu and I haven't talked that much.
I know it's a little bit shocking. I think it's always good to network in the space, and it's always good to get in contact, especially because we have a lot of mutual friends.
I appreciate you having me on. If you don't know, my name is Champ, aka Champ Crypto, aka NFT Steve Jobs,
yes, sir.
Aka the crypto. I don't have one today, but I have a lot of nicknames, and I'm excited to be here, man. So appreciate it.
Let's go. Well, yeah, obviously, if you guys don't know, Champ has been very successful through NFTs, and even has his own NFT collection. So make sure you guys check out his YouTube channel and also his Twitter. But we can jump right into it. So Champ, when and then how, I guess, did you get involved in like the entire NFT space?
It's kind of a funny story, and it involves somebody you know. Back last August, so we're coming up on a year here. Things happen fast in NFTs. It hasn't even been a whole year. A friend of mine, a colleague of mine, and somebody that I worked with that goes by the name of the Brett Way. You guys might know him. Yeah, Brett Malinowski. At the time, the way that I knew Brett was that he was shooting my music videos. Now, I guess that's a little bit of a lesser known fact. I mean, I have music out publicly, but I was aside from my 9-to-5 job, I was doing music basically full time before I got into NFTs. I knew Brett because he's a videographer, or rather full time. He was doing video back then. And he used to shoot my videos. We knew each other that way. We talked a lot about NFTs. At the time, I was familiar with NFTs, and I was already invested in crypto. I had been for years at this point, rather. While I was familiar with NFTs, I wasn't invested in any. I had yet to sort of make the jump. But I like to say I was probably the easiest sell ever. It did not take a lot of convincing for me. I was very much intrigued with the concept. It seemed like a good idea. You know, I'm young. I didn't have that much to lose. I had been saving money for like a few months off of my 9-to-5 job. And I was like, dude, I'm going to just hop in here and see what happens. So I took a risk at the time and spent about a third of my net worth on a single NFT. That was a Doge Pound NFT for about 0.74, something like that, 0.71, 0.72. And it was kind of scary, and it was confusing to me having to send it to MetaMask and go through all the steps. But something that I'd learned from a couple successful people I was around, that it was that you get rewarded by taking action and doing things that are sort of challenging and confusing at first, because it allows you to be ahead of the crowd. So I was like, okay, whatever, let's see what happens. It's kind of scary. I bought it. I went to bed. I woke up and the floor on them on OpenSea was like 1.2 ETH. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, it's up. I was like, I just made like $1,000.
Let's go.
I was like, $1,000. I was like, oh my God. You know what I mean? I was like, this can actually happen, right? So that happened, and from that moment onwards, I was like, boom, right into it. I would just go to work every day. I was definitely very distracted at work. I would work all day, and then I would get off work, and then for like 5 to 7 or even more hours, right after that, I would just be like locked in on NFTs. I would get off and going straight to Discord. I'm in little chat rooms. I'm learning. I'm buying things. I'm selling them. Definitely not making a lot of good trades at first, but I just like dove into it, right? And dedicated months and months of my life in a very degenerate fashion, learning about the market, making mistakes. But I just had this like feeling, right? I remember whenever I first got into NFTs, I had this strange feeling, and maybe it's, just I just thought this because I got lucky on my first one. I don't know. It worked out. But I had this feeling of like, I finally found something that I really can understand and be really good at. This is way cooler than my job. I already liked crypto, and I just started going ham. Obviously, since then, I've done a number of other things, launch a collection. But that was sort of the genesis.
Awesome. Well, I mean, if you don't mind diving a little bit deeper into like some of the numbers, because I think that some of our audience is a little bit curious. How much did you start off with? And then at like the peak, I know we're like kind of in a quote unquote bear market, but at like the peak of your portfolio, how much would you, I guess, say you were up?
So it started with that Doge Pound NFT, which at the time was like that would have been like $2,200 maybe,
Yeah.
or a little bit more than that. So that went up, and I ended up holding that for a while, and then I threw a little bit more in. I made one more purchase before my first sale, and that was a Space Punk, if you remember Space Punks, at like 0.3. So, and then maybe I bought one other thing. At the end of the day, I think my initial investment was around like 1.2 ETH. That snowballed into 20, into 50,000 US dollars.
Wow.
Hit the six-figure mark after a while, and bear in mind, right, I made a lot of mistakes along the way. I was a beneficiary of a very bullish market, and the point of this video is not for me to come on here and convince you that I'm like a trading savant or a genius, but rather to demonstrate the fact that I was able to, by cutting my teeth in the NFT market and, you know, really like studying and being willing to sort of make mistakes, generate more than what my yearly salary was at the time. And that's whenever I was like, whoa, you know, maybe it's time to figure out if there's a way that I can make this a job.
Cool. Well, that's awesome, man. So, I guess walking back a little bit, could you kind of walk us through like your whole entire NFT journey? Like, I know you said like you made a ton of mistakes. I think a lot of people can relate to that, myself included. But how did you come in, you know, buying one Doge pound into like, you know, this alpha group, you know, YouTuber who's making a decent amount of money in the NFT market?
Right. So I detailed a bit where it started. And like I said, after I made a couple of those initial purchases, I was able to flip a couple things and accumulate a couple of ETH. Now, to be honest, speed of information is king in this space. I take very one second. I take very little personal credit for being the sole person acquiring a lot of the information that ended up making me successful. What really took me to the next level was being willing to learn from other people and immersing myself in the right groups, right? And this was sort of the genesis of, you know, alpha groups for me, or like rather sort of the proof of concept for why this is a useful thing, is I was in a couple of small groups on Discord, like small groups of people trading. And I just like lived in there, right? I kept sort of hopping around groups, you know, getting an invite here, and then you go down this rabbit hole until I found ones where I really felt like I was surrounded by people who were all smarter than me, that I was definitely kind of like out of my element and probably the worst trader in there and the least knowledgeable, but just kind of like trying to blend in, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kind of like when you like sneak into the club or something and then you meet people who help you be successful. And I would just sit in there and like lurk and just read what people were doing and just like live in these chat rooms. And that helped me tremendously. I got so much valuable information, right? I got some calls out of those groups, or access to, or got pointed towards trends first, that allowed me to continue building that stack. And then the important part is that I made it a mission to watch what's going on in those groups, look how they were working, and figure out how I could apply those things myself. And that, at the end of the day, I think is the true value proposition of alpha groups and things of that nature, is the ability to then use that knowledge and that know-how and those techniques to do things yourself. I can get some more into that later. But long story short, I surrounded myself with smart people, and that helped me become a good trader, a very competent trader faster myself. Was able to flip up, and then anybody who follows me on Twitter or the YouTube, because I've kind of beaten a dead horse about it, knows about the mutant buy. That was the scariest buy of my life at the time. Bought a mutant for 4.44, I believe it was. All fours.
Nice.
And then it's so funny, dude. And then they dipped from there to like 3.5, 3.3 or something. And I was like, oh, I bought the top. I can't believe I've done this. And you guys know how that story ended up going. But anyway, that buy to me, I know it's like corny to talk about, and of course luck was an element of that, as it is with all of these things, or educated guesses. But I always talk about that buy because I felt like that was sort of like me, like really cementing the fact that like I think this is it. That was the largest amount of money I'd ever spent in my life. That was at the time like 14,000. That was significantly more than like what was in my actual bank account at the time. It was all in MetaMask, but it wasn't all of my MetaMask. But so I did that, and then I kind of had like a little bit left over to sort of continue flipping with, and just grinded it out, man. There's a lot of different things that happened, but again, like let everybody watching this know that the way that I figured out how to trade this market was by not being egotistical, by not thinking that I knew everything, and rather by like literally just being a sponge and being willing to cut my teeth and put in the time that it takes to spend times in Discord groups with people smarter than me. That's why I always talk about VC.
Yeah, I think that's awesome.
Just network. Just network.
That's
got to network.
Yeah, I think that's something that I can definitely attest to as well. In the NFT space, there's so much going on, and I remember at the beginning, even me personally, I thought I could be this lone wolf and I could figure out like everything on my own, but it's way, way, way harder if you go down that route. And it's also a lot more fun when you have friends in this space or people you can just bounce ideas off of. And I think that's like a huge, it's a huge part of trading NFTs, and it's my favorite part as well. I guess moving on to the next, moving on to the next question, because I'm sure a lot of people kind of have this in mind. You personally, what do you look for in specific upcoming projects or projects in general that you want to invest in?
Depends on market conditions. Whenever things are bullish, like they were in January, right? At that time, it was as simple as understanding narratives, understanding trends, and understanding that you can leverage your knowledge of what trend is sort of popping off at any given time, which, by the way, and this is a theme that I revisit fairly often, is deceptively easy. I think a lot of people trick themselves into trading NFTs or crypto being harder than it is, or they think that something can't work because it's too simple and too obvious, when in reality those are oftentimes the plays that you like psych yourself out of and end up making you the most money. Like for like buying that mutant was like seems so obvious, like it's literally you know what I mean, it's the Bored Ape Yacht Club attached to Yuga Labs, and I was like, there's no way it's as simple as just buying that when it's cheap. And you saw how that goes. And things are very bullish. I'm looking for narratives. Anime, as an example, right? Everybody wishes they had gotten in on Azuki. Most people did not get in on Azuki. And the reality of it is that getting in on those very first projects that start the trend, while it has the highest ROI, is the most challenging. And I'll talk about how I try and do that here in just a second. But first, I'll talk about what I think is more applicable to most people, which is that it's okay if you miss that first piece, as long as you remain vigilant and understand what the trend is that's leading the market and leverage all the tools. They're great free tools. You use IC tools for this. And all the information you have at your disposal to capitalize on the FOMO that ensues in bullish market conditions. What I mean by that, okay, Azuki goes crazy. 3 ETH, 5 ETH, 10 ETH. Everyone's, I missed it. Okay, boom. Lives of Suna drops. Okay, 2 ETH, 3 ETH. Zipsies drops. Flies to 5. Okay, those were directly products of Azuki FOMO, right? But then all of a sudden people are priced out of Lives of Suna. And then people are priced out of Zipsies, right? Okay, so where do they go? You and I, if you pay attention to NFTs, you know exactly what's going to happen is they're going to start FOMOing into basically whatever the cheapest projects they see with the best reputation in the space that fit into that narrative. And again, I know this almost sounds like I'm oversimplifying it, but so many people that I know and people in my alpha group and myself were able to make so much money in the last bull market by literally just waiting for a new trend to pop off. Sitting there and like just watching icy tools like a hawk, seeing which projects in that narrative began to get a little bit of traction, and then using sort of like the fundamental logic and skills that I talk about all the time, and I'm not going to launch into on this video, to understand when to enter and take profit. But as far as finding projects, a lot of times it just has to do with understanding narratives, and I do make an effort to sort of keep up with what's going on. At the moment, we're seeing a really big trend into Solana. That's obviously a larger category. You can't just buy anything on Solana and go crazy right now. But basically, any hyped project on Solana is going to do well right now, and the move is definitely just to try and flip whitelist for now, in my opinion. But real question is how we find those projects that are the first ones, and that's obviously a more complex question, right? Okay, it's a multi-part answer. The first part of this, I know, is something that you've probably heard parroted by a bunch of people before. That's because it's true. The number one most important thing that I'm looking for is a team. I'm really encouraged by a project because their team has people that have run successful businesses before. I am specifically very fond of teams that have people who have run successful crypto projects before. That's like a huge green flag.
Right. So past success or business experience and them jumping into the Web3 space is always a good sign.
Absolutely. But if they've had past success in the Web3 space, it's an even better sign. That's not always an indicator. What I'm more concerned with when I'm looking at teams is, do they understand social dynamics and how to drive demand, right? I think doodles are a really good example of that. It's also an example of what I said before of sometimes the most obvious plays being the highest ROI. Doodles came out, and they sat around that 0.9 ETH range for a while. The market was pretty bearish at the time, but I remember sitting there and I faded doodles because I was like, man, everyone's already talking about these. These have already probably pumped enough, like they'll, you know what I mean? But then I was like, they do look really good. And when I look at the team, it's really obvious they know how to build a super good brand. And then you look into Poopy's past, or you look into any of these other founders, and you're like, well, they do have a history of building successful Web3 brands, and the website looks beautiful, and all their content is really well curated, and we know how big of a role aesthetics on Twitter play. But it's too obvious. No. All of those things I just said about that team are the exact reason why it should have been glaringly obvious to me to buy at 0.9 or 1 or 2.
I know, me
or
too,
1
man.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, they had, they had good art. They had, a proven team, I think Poopy, and they're also innovative in the space as well. And they definitely understood NFT culture, which is always a great sign too. So I think those are definitely all great things to look at, especially when you're trying to, I guess, decide where to put your money, because there's just so many projects coming out right now. And then I think, just looking at several of those factors would be beneficial to help decipher, I guess, some of the good projects from the bad projects. But we are going a little bit long. So I do want to ask you one last question, because I think a lot of the people in the audience would want to know. So if you're basically...
Sorry for talking so much.
No, you're good. Bad. You're good. The people love hearing Champ D Graham.
Stop.
So you're a new DGen in the NFT space, right? You don't have a huge budget. Say you have around maybe 1 ETH. How would you basically build up capital, and how would you, I guess, get yourself started in the NFT space?
The easiest and best answer is also the worst one. You know what I'm about to say. Dude.
I know what you're about to say.
You know exactly what I'm about to say. It's flipping whitelist. Man.
Yep.
Understanding what the narrative is and flipping those whitelists. I talked about that earlier with Solana. I'm going to be straight up, like right now, if you are coming into NFTs, the easiest way up off the ground and build up enough capital to sort of get past those barriers of entry, because there are barriers of entry to NFTs and you have to have a little bit to be able to do anything. The best thing you could do right now, if you have like almost nothing to start, specifically because Solana mints are way cheaper, right, would be to literally dedicate your time to getting whitelisted for like 2 hyped projects. And I don't like the culture around whitelist grinds right now. I think that it is to a degree dehumanizing, and I think that it encourages a lot of like just bad behavior, right? Like faking being nice to each other and sitting in Discord 24/7. Obviously there's not that many like obvious solutions. Another one is when projects just do straight up pre-mint raffles, which you should be entering every single one of those.
Yeah,
free
I think,
money.
Yeah,
free money.
When you're coming into the NFT space, especially if you don't have a lot of capital to invest in, like say the blue chips, you have to, I guess, dedicate more time, and that time would probably be best allocated in the Discord trying to grind for whitelist, because you don't have that capital to spend. So I totally agree. I think whitelist flipping, although it's not as profitable right now because we're in a quote unquote bear period, but if the market's hot, it's really, really profitable. And even right now, you can still definitely make a decent amount of money flipping whitelists.
Dude, and because those hype projects are going to be basically the only ones that are going to deliver profit in a market like this anyway. But the caveat there is that once you build up a big enough stack to be able to start trading, even some of those mid-low cap NFTs, you have to break out of that cycle, and you have to dedicate that time you would be spending grinding whitelist, networking. I'm so serious about networking on Discord. Go sit in VC in whatever projects. Wait till you hear smart people that sound like they know what they're doing trading talk. DM them. Be like, hey, do you have any groups that you're a part? Any chat? Like, just network, and you will find smart people, and spending time around them will make you such a better trader. Discord is like this. It's never been easier to meet people who can teach you how to do things, to meet people who can enable you to be successful and make so much money from your desk chair. It's just insane. You can meet people so easily, and it's going to be uncomfortable. And I know it's weird to put yourself out there and go sit in a VC, but dude, it helps so much. Yep. Your network is your net worth. I mean, it sounds corny, but it's pretty true. And I know a lot of people in the NFT space don't really want to join the VCs or type in the chats because they feel a little bit weird about it. But it's going to be the most beneficial thing, or at least even on my
my end, it helped me tremendously. But Champ, thank you so much for hopping on the channel. I'm sure a lot of the viewers can benefit a lot from this. So thank you so much. And guys, we will catch you in the next episode. We're going to be signing off. Champ, you have anything else to say?
Dude, I do. And it's to you, Binto. It is thank you. It is all of my gratitude for hosting me on the channel. I appreciate you being willing to do this, man. I love speaking with people and networking, like I said. I admire what you've done, man. Run a great project, friends with a lot of my friends, and appreciate it, dude. So let's do it again sometime.
Thanks so much. Make sure to check out Champ on all social platforms. And we're also going to be recording a video on his channel too, so make sure to check that out. Peace, everybody.
Peace.